Hi and welcome back to our esports mini-series exploring the psychology behind success in professional gaming. I know it's been a while since our last episode, but I've been busy writing up a paper exploring the eye gaze patterns of goalkeepers during penalty shootouts, which is at long last now finished. If that sort of thing interests you, then feel free to drop me a message and we can talk about it. So back to the video. Today it's all about tilt and the ways in which you can beat it. I'm willing to bet we've all been there when nothing goes your way in game no matter what you do. Maybe you've been spawn picked at the start of a round in Siege, you get killed just as you use your ultimate in Overwatch, or your team just doesn't want to work together and solo queue. Whether you're a pro or game for fun, these things happen to all of us and can set you on the slippery slope of anger, annoyance and frustration for the rest of the session, which usually is accompanied by a run of losses. It's this spiral of anger and reduced emotional control that we know as tilt. When you're tilted, the decisions you make suffer, your adrenaline surges and you lose focus, so if you can remain level whilst your opponent begins to tilt, then you will be at a huge advantage. So what is tilt? Originally a poker term, tilt refers to a state of mental or emotional confusion or frustration in which a player adopts a less than optimal strategy, resulting in over-aggressive behaviour. Adopted by the gaming community, the term has essentially the same meaning, but usually signals the beginning of a downward spiral as frustration rises and successes fall. So you will probably know personally, but how does tilting actually affect your gameplay? In psychology, the concept of tilt is better known as the curvilinear relationship between arousal and performance, which effectively means that as arousal or stress increases, so does performance, to a point. After this peak, however, performance begins to trail off as arousal continues to climb. Known as the Yerkes-Dodson law, this performance or arousal curve can be catastrophic for gaming, where fortune can sometimes favour pure luck or just high ping. As the graph shows, some stress can be useful, causing a slightly increased heart rate, breathing and raised adrenaline secretion, which can aid in reactions and performance, but after a point this increased arousal state can become detrimental, with shaking, anger and frustration often rearing its ugly head. When you're on tilt, your gameplay can suffer dramatically. Instead of focusing on team strategy, aim or thinking ahead, your thoughts tend to shift internally towards negativity and trying to either make up for a mistake or get payback. You might begin to rush in without thinking, start blaming your teammates for not covering you, make unnecessary callouts, or even blame the game itself. Now, whether you're in the right or wrong, all this does is serve to increase your arousal state, making you more frustrated and pushing you further down the performance slope. So if you can recognise when you've reached the performance or arousal apex and nip tilt in the bud, then you can maintain a high level of gameplay whilst managing your frustration. Channeling this frustration into improved gameplay is fairly simple and something we'll talk about in a minute. So whilst you stay calm and on the ball, your opponent may begin to spiral into an inefficient anger and frustration, clouding their judgment. In summary then, stress and adrenaline are good for performance up to a point. It's balancing on this point that is an essential mental skill for anyone wanting to play at the top of their game. So how do you recognise tilt in yourself then? Learning to recognise the signs that you may be heading towards tilt can be one of the most important steps in combating it. If you can recognise the symptoms early, you can shut it down before it becomes a problem, as the worse it gets, the longer it will take you to return to an optimal mental state. So what to look for? You're going to need to keep an eye out for things like elevated heart rate, short sharp breaths, overly tense muscles, so let's say your shoulders are hunched or you've got your mouse in a death grip, which anyone who plays twitchy shooters knows that when the pressure mounts this can be disastrous for aiming. You'll also need to keep an eye on flaming your teammates, which might temporarily make you feel better but helps no one at the end of things. Wanting payback on the other team, forgetting that the other team are still just humans behind the screen, and giving unnecessary callouts in frustration. After all, communication is essential in games at the top level, and clogging up comms with irrelevant shouts only gets in the way and can affect the mentality of other players on your team. So the essential bit, how can you stop tilt? So we all know what tilt is, how to recognise it, how it affects our play, but how do we stop it? Long-standing techniques used by athletes from more traditional sports can be helpful here, with many using the following methods to try and stay on top of their mental game. First off, positive and functional wording. So this is basically reminding yourself of what you're good at if it looks like a game isn't going your way, refraining from beating yourself up over mistakes as this is not productive. Using words and phrases either in the first or third person that boost your confidence, such as "you've trained for this" or "I've been through worse and come out on top, I can do it again." Alongside this, using phrases relating to specific functions or aspects of your game like "check the corners" or "remember to breathe", as these serve to bring your focus back into the present rather than dwelling on the mistakes or letting anger get the better of you, whilst making sure the core of your game is covered. You'd be surprised how often people actually forget to breathe during a tough match and make simple mistakes as a result. Change your mindset. Change the way you think about being unlucky or making a mistake. Instead of flaming yourself or your team for what's happened, accept it as something that is done and cannot be changed. What you can change, however, is your reaction to it. Repeat to yourself how it won't happen again because now you know that strategy, move or play did not work, and gradually begin to manipulate your mindset to see mistakes as learning points which you can take control of, rather than just an unlucky moment or a problem within the game. Remember, it's only a mistake if you don't learn from it. The best players search out their mistakes and what went wrong so they can fix it. Now, this can be an uncomfortable process because no one likes seeing their mistakes again, but it's the only way you can prevent them happening again in the future. After all, the annoyance of fixing a mistake will overall be less than that of making the mistake again. Breathing focus. Another classic technique is to focus on your breathing during a stressful match. As things are heating up, phrases to remind yourself to keep your breathing calm and focused, and if you make a mistake, rather than verbally lashing out, getting angry and inadvertently holding your breath, just inhale. Feel the air enter your lungs as they expand, then focus on the feeling of it escaping as you breathe out. Try and notice how the warm air feels as it hits your top lip, and continue to take notice until you've returned to a managed emotional state. If you can identify when you may be just starting to tilt, then this can be a powerful tool to stop you sliding down the performance slope. And finally, if all else fails, take a break. Walk away from the game for a moment. Play another less intense game you enjoy, or do another activity. Once you're back in control and calm, come back to the game and play some casual matches, or grab some mates for strat roulette and have fun again. Too often people forget that at our core, all gamers started gaming to have fun, and reminding yourself of that can help put you back on track to a more positive mindset. So then, if you can use a few techniques every time you feel frustration and anger taken over during a match, then you're well on your way to reaching the performance apex and staying there. You won't conquer tilt overnight, but with dedicated practice and conscious effort, you'll notice a change in your reaction to adversity from anger to acceptance and then on to improvement. And so there it is, another episode done and dusted. I hope you found this one useful, and if you ever want to know more, just drop by the website at www.levelupperformanceuk.wordpress.com or send me a message at the address on screen. Feel free to drop us a follow too, and once again, all the best. I hope you've enjoyed your Manna for the Mind.